How to set financial boundaries with friends and family. Are you tired of feeling drained, guilty, or broke because you can't say no to friends and family asking for money? What if you could protect your financial future and keep your relationships stronger than ever, without the stress, resentment, or awkward moments? Stick with me to the end of this audio, and I'll reveal the exact strategies to set rock-solid financial boundaries that leave you feeling empowered, not selfish. You'll discover how to say no with confidence, avoid the guilt trips, and stop being the bank for everyone else, while still being the supportive friend or family member you want to be. I'll share real-life scripts to handle tricky money conversations, insider tips to navigate cultural expectations, and a step-by-step plan to create boundaries that stick, so you can finally take control of your finances without losing the people you love. By the end, you'll feel ready to reclaim your money, your peace of mind, and your relationships, transforming them into something deeper, more honest, and truly fulfilling. As you listen, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and enable the notification bell so you'll be alerted whenever we upload a new one. Let's get to it. Setting financial boundaries with friends and family is one of those topics that often feels like walking a tightrope. You want to maintain healthy relationships, show care and support, and still protect your own financial well-being. It's not always easy, especially when emotions, expectations, and long-standing dynamics come into play. Money has a way of complicating even the closest bonds, and without clear boundaries, it can lead to resentment, stress, or even fractured relationships. The good news is that with thoughtful communication, self-awareness, and a commitment to consistency, you can establish boundaries that respect both your financial goals and your loved ones. This article dives into the nuances of setting those boundaries, offering practical strategies to navigate these often tricky situations while preserving your relationships and peace of mind. Money is deeply personal, yet it's also deeply social. From splitting the bill at a group dinner to being asked for a loan by a family member, financial interactions with those close to you are inevitable. The challenge lies in balancing generosity with self-preservation. Without boundaries, you might find yourself overextending financially, saying yes to requests you can't afford, or feeling taken advantage of when your kindness isn't reciprocated. On the flip side, being too rigid or unclear can make you seem distant or uncaring. The key is finding a middle ground where your financial decisions align with your values and your relationships remain intact. The first step in setting financial boundaries is understanding your own financial situation. You can't set limits if you don't know where you stand. Take an honest look at your income, expenses, savings, and financial goals. Are you living paycheck to paycheck, or do you have a cushion? Are you saving for a big purchase, like a house or a car, or working to pay off debt? Knowing your financial reality gives you the clarity to decide what you can and cannot afford when it comes to helping others or participating in shared expenses. For example, if you're barely covering your bills, agreeing to chip in for an expensive group vacation or lending money to a friend could derail your stability. By grounding yourself in your financial truth, you're better equipped to make decisions that don't compromise your well-being. Once you've got a handle on your finances, it's time to reflect on your values and priorities. What role do you want money to play in your relationships? Some people feel a strong sense of duty to help family members financially, while others prioritize their own financial independence above all else. There's no right or wrong answer here, but being clear about your values helps you set boundaries that feel authentic. For instance, if supporting your family is important but you also want to save for the future, you might decide to offer help in non-monetary ways, like helping a sibling with a job search instead of giving them cash. This reflection also helps you identify your limits, what you're willing to do and what crosses the line. Communication is the cornerstone of setting financial boundaries. It's not enough to know your limits, you have to express them clearly and respectfully. This can feel daunting, especially if you're not used to discussing money openly or if your family has a culture of avoiding tough conversations. The key is to approach these discussions with empathy and firmness. For example, if a friend keeps asking you to cover their share of dinner because they're short this month, you might say, "I really enjoy our time together, but I need to stick to my budget, so let's split the bill evenly from now on." This approach is kind but direct, making it clear that your decision is about your financial needs, not a judgment of their situation. Timing matters when it comes to these conversations. Bringing up financial boundaries in the heat of the moment, like when someone asks for a loan or during an argument, can make things tense or emotional. Instead, try to have these discussions proactively, before a situation arises. For example, if you know your family has a tradition of expensive holiday gift exchanges, you could bring it up months in advance. "I'm trying to simplify things this year and stick to a budget. How about we do a secret Santa with a $20 limit?" This gives everyone time to adjust and reduces the chance of hurt feelings. Proactive communication also signals that you're thoughtful about your decisions, not just reacting to a specific request. One of the hardest situations to navigate is when someone asks for a loan. It's natural to want to help a loved one in need, but lending money can strain relationships if expectations aren't clear. Before saying yes, ask yourself a few key questions. Can you afford to lend the money without impacting your own financial goals? What happens if they don't pay you back? Are you comfortable with the possibility that the loan might become a gift? If you decide to lend money, treat it like a formal transaction. Write up a simple agreement outlining the amount, repayment terms, and timeline. This might feel awkward, but it clarifies expectations and reduces the chance of misunderstandings. For example, you could say, "I'm happy to help with $500, and we can set up a plan for you to pay me back $50 a month." Let's put it in writing so we're both clear. If you can't afford to lend money, be honest. "I really wish I could help, but my budget is tight right now. Let's figure out another way to support you." Saying no is often the hardest part of setting financial boundaries, especially when it comes to family. Guilt can creep in, particularly if you've been raised to believe that family always comes first. But saying yes when you can't afford it or don't want to can lead to resentment, which is far more damaging to relationships in the long run. Practice saying no in a way that's firm but compassionate. For instance, if your cousin asks for help paying their rent, you might say, "I care about you and hate that you're in a tough spot, but I can't contribute financially right now." Offering alternative support, like helping them find local resources or brainstorming ways to cut expenses, shows that you still care without compromising your boundaries. Consistency is crucial when it comes to financial boundaries. If you say no to one request but then give in to a similar one later, it sends mixed signals and makes it harder for people to respect your limits. For example, if you've told your sibling you can't lend them money but then bail them out a month later, they might assume your boundaries are flexible. This doesn't mean you can never change your mind, but try to stick to your principles unless there's a compelling reason to make an exception. If you do make an exception, communicate why. "I'm helping out this time because it's an emergency, but I can't do this regularly." This reinforces that your boundaries are still in place. Group dynamics, like splitting costs for shared activities, can also test your financial boundaries. Whether it's a group vacation, a friend's bachelor party, or a family reunion, these situations often come with unspoken assumptions about who's paying for what. Be upfront about what you can afford from the start. For instance, if your friends are planning a pricey getaway, you could say, "I'd love to join, but my budget is $300 for the trip. Can we find options that fit that, or should I sit this one out?" Being clear early on prevents awkwardness later and gives others a chance to adjust plans or make accommodations. It also helps you avoid feeling pressured into overspending just to keep up. Cultural and family expectations can add another layer of complexity. In some families, there's a strong norm of sharing resources or supporting each other financially, which can make setting boundaries feel like you're going against tradition. If this resonates with you, approach the conversation with respect for those values while explaining your perspective. For example, you might say to your parents, I know our family has always helped each other out, and I value that. But with my current financial goals, I need to set some limits on how much I can contribute. Framing it this way shows that you're not rejecting the family's values but adapting them to your circumstances. It's also worth recognizing that financial boundaries go both ways. Just as you want others to respect your limits, you need to respect theirs. If a friend declines to chip in for an expensive group gift or a family member says they can't help with a financial request, try not to take it personally. They might be setting their own boundaries, and pushing them could strain the relationship. Instead, acknowledge their decision and move forward. I understand, no worries. Let's figure out another way to make this work. This mutual respect creates a healthier dynamic where everyone feels safe to be honest about their financial limits. Emotions often run high when money is involved, so it's important to manage your own feelings during these conversations. If you're feeling guilty, anxious, or angry, take a moment to pause and reflect before responding to a request. Ask yourself why you're feeling this way. Is it guilt from saying no to a loved one? Frustration from repeated requests? Understanding your emotions helps you respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. For example, if you're tempted to say yes to a loan out of guilt, remind yourself that protecting your financial stability is a form of self-care, not selfishness. Technology can be a helpful tool in maintaining financial boundaries. Apps like Splitwise or Venmo make it easier to track shared expenses and settle up quickly, reducing the chance of misunderstandings. For example, if you're splitting a restaurant bill, you can use an app to calculate everyone's share and request payment on the spot. This takes the awkwardness out of chasing people down later and reinforces the expectation of fairness. Similarly, setting up automatic transfers to a savings account can help you prioritize your financial goals, making it easier to say no to requests that don't align with your plans. Over time, you might find that some relationships test your boundaries more than others. If a friend or family member repeatedly disregards your limits, say, by asking for money after you've said no or pressuring you to overspend, it might be a sign of a deeper issue. In these cases, it's worth having a more direct conversation about the pattern. For example, I've noticed you keep asking for financial help even though I've said I can't right now. Can we talk about what's going on? This opens the door to addressing the root cause without escalating into conflict. In rare cases, you might need to distance yourself from someone who consistently disrespects your boundaries, but this should be a last resort. Setting financial boundaries isn't just about saying no, it's about creating space for healthier relationships and financial peace of mind. When you're clear about your limits, you're less likely to feel resentful or taken advantage of, and you can engage with friends and family from a place of generosity rather than obligation. It also sets a positive example for others, showing that it's okay to prioritize financial well-being while still being a supportive friend or family member. Over time, the people who care about you will respect your boundaries, and those who don't might not be worth keeping in your inner circle. One often overlooked aspect of financial boundaries is the role of self-discipline. It's easy to blame others for crossing your boundaries, but sometimes we sabotage ourselves by not sticking to our own rules. For example, if you've decided not to lend money but then give in because you feel bad, you're undermining your own limits. To avoid this, practice reinforcing your boundaries with small, consistent actions. If you've set a budget for social outings, stick to it even when tempted to overspend. If you've decided not to co-sign a loan, remind yourself of the risks before you're swayed by emotion. Building this discipline takes time, but it strengthens your ability to maintain boundaries in the long run. Another important consideration is how to handle financial boundaries in romantic relationships, where money can be especially tricky. If you're sharing expenses with a partner or spouse, open communication is non-negotiable. Sit down together and agree on how you'll handle shared costs, like rent, groceries, or date nights. For example, you might decide to split everything 50-50 or based on income proportions. Whatever you choose, make sure it feels fair to both of you and revisit the agreement if circumstances change. If you're not yet at the stage of sharing finances, be clear about what you're comfortable paying for. For instance, if you're dating someone who expects you to cover all the dates, you might say, "I love spending time with you, but I need to stick to my budget. Let's take turns covering our dates." This sets a precedent for mutual respect early on. When it comes to family, long-standing dynamics can make boundary setting feel like an uphill battle. If you grew up in a household where money was a source of tension or obligation, you might feel pressure to continue those patterns. Breaking free requires both courage and clarity. For example, if your parents expect you to contribute to their expenses but it's straining your finances, you could say, "I want to support you, but I can only contribute $100 a month right now." Offering a specific amount or type of help shows that you're still engaged, but on terms that work for you. If they push back, stay calm and reiterate your position without getting drawn into an argument. It's also worth noting that financial boundaries don't always involve saying no. Sometimes, they're about saying yes in a way that aligns with your goals. For example, instead of lending money to a friend, you might offer to pay for a specific expense, like a utility bill, or help them find a financial advisor. This kind of support shows that you care without putting your own finances at risk. Similarly, if you want to contribute to a family event but can't afford a big gift, you could offer your time or skills, say, by organizing the event or cooking a meal. These gestures maintain the spirit of generosity while respecting your financial limits. As you navigate these situations, remember that boundaries are not walls. They're not about cutting people off or being selfish, they're about creating clarity and mutual respect. When done well, financial boundaries can actually strengthen your relationships by reducing misunderstandings and fostering honesty. They also give you the freedom to be generous on your own terms, whether that's through financial help, emotional support, or simply showing up as your best self. The goal is to find a balance where you feel secure in your finances and connected to the people you care about. Over time, you'll likely find that setting financial boundaries becomes easier with practice. The first few conversations might feel awkward, but as you get more comfortable expressing your needs, it becomes second nature. You'll also start to notice which relationships thrive under clear boundaries and which ones struggle. This can be a valuable insight, helping you invest your energy in connections that are mutually supportive. Ultimately, setting financial boundaries is an act of self-respect and care for others, creating a foundation for relationships that are built on trust, respect, and understanding. One final thought: financial boundaries are not static. As your financial situation evolves, whether you get a raise, pay off debt, or face unexpected expenses, your boundaries might need to adjust. Check in with yourself periodically to make sure your limits still align with your goals and values. Life changes, and so do relationships, so staying flexible while staying true to your principles is key. By approaching financial boundaries with intention and empathy, you can protect your financial well-being while nurturing the relationships that matter most. Navigating the delicate balance of setting financial boundaries with friends and family requires ongoing effort, self-awareness, and a willingness to adapt as circumstances shift. It's a process that doesn't just protect your wallet, it safeguards your emotional well-being and the health of your relationships. As we dive deeper into this topic, let's explore more nuanced strategies, practical examples, and psychological insights to help you establish and maintain financial boundaries with confidence, while keeping your connections strong and authentic. One of the most overlooked aspects of setting financial boundaries is the role of self-worth. Many people struggle to say no because they tie their value to being helpful or accommodating. If you've ever felt that saying no makes you a bad friend or family member, you're not alone. This mindset often stems from a fear of rejection or a desire to be seen as generous. However, tying your self-worth to financial giving can lead to overextension and resentment. Instead, Remind yourself that your value lies in who you are, not how much you can give. A practical way to reinforce this is to practice small, low-stakes boundary setting in everyday situations. For instance, if a friend suggests an expensive coffee shop, propose a more affordable alternative. I'm trying to keep things budget-friendly. How about we grab coffee at that cozy spot down the street instead? This small act reinforces your ability to prioritize your needs without diminishing your worth in the relationship. Another critical factor is understanding the emotional triggers that influence your financial decisions. Money conversations often stir up complex feelings: guilt, obligation, fear of conflict, or even pride. These emotions can cloud your judgment and make it harder to stick to your boundaries. For example, if your sibling asks for help with a car payment, you might feel a pang of guilt if you were raised to believe family always comes first. Before responding, take a moment to identify the emotion driving your impulse. Are you saying yes out of love, or is it fear of disappointing them? Journaling about these moments can help you uncover patterns and make more intentional choices. Over time, you'll learn to separate your emotions from your financial decisions, allowing you to respond with clarity rather than reacting impulsively. Let's consider the role of reciprocity in relationships. Many financial tensions arise when there's an imbalance in give and take. For instance, if you're always the one covering the tab for group outings or helping a family member with bills, you might start to feel like your generosity is being taken for granted. This is where setting expectations for reciprocity can be helpful. Reciprocity doesn't always mean financial repayment. It could be an exchange of time, skills, or emotional support. For example, if you've been covering dinners with a friend who's struggling financially, you might say, "I'm happy to cover this time, but maybe next time you could host a game night at your place." This approach fosters a sense of fairness and ensures that the relationship doesn't become one-sided. If someone consistently takes without giving back in any form, it might be time to reevaluate the dynamic and have a candid conversation about mutual respect. Another layer to explore is the influence of social norms and peer pressure. In today's world, social media amplifies the pressure to keep up appearances, whether it's joining friends for a lavish weekend getaway or buying extravagant gifts for family milestones. These expectations can make it hard to stick to your financial boundaries, especially when you see others seemingly effortlessly participating. To counter this, focus on redefining what keeping up means to you. Instead of equating it with spending, prioritize experiences that align with your values and budget. For example, if your friends are planning a high-end birthday dinner, suggest a potluck celebration at home instead. "I'd love to celebrate with everyone, how about we do a homemade dinner and make it a cozy night in?" This not only saves money but also shifts the focus to meaningful connection rather than flashy spending. When it comes to family, generational differences can complicate financial boundaries. Older generations might have different views on money, shaped by their upbringing or economic circumstances. For instance, your parents might expect you to contribute to family expenses because that's how they were raised, while you're focused on building your own financial independence. Navigating this requires a blend of empathy and assertiveness. Start by acknowledging their perspective. "I know you've always worked hard to support the family, and I really admire that." Then, explain your position. "Right now, I'm focused on saving for my future, so I can only contribute in smaller ways, like helping with errands or planning family gatherings." This approach validates their values while clearly stating your limits, reducing the chance of conflict. Let's talk about the specific challenge of gift giving, which often carries heavy emotional and financial weight. Whether it's holidays, birthdays, or weddings, gift expectations can strain your budget and test your boundaries. One way to manage this is to propose alternative traditions that prioritize thoughtfulness over expense. For example, you could suggest a family-wide agreement to exchange homemade gifts, experiences, or acts of service instead of store-bought items. You might say, "This year, I'm trying to keep things simple. What if we each write a heartfelt letter or make something special for each other? This not only eases financial pressure but also creates more meaningful moments. If you're dealing with a group that insists on expensive gifts, be upfront about your budget. I'm sticking to a $30 limit for gifts this year, hope that's okay. Setting this expectation early prevents awkwardness and helps others adjust. Another scenario that often arises is when friends or family assume you'll cover shared costs because you're perceived as better off. This assumption can stem from your job, lifestyle, or even the way you present yourself. If you're in this situation, it's important to correct misconceptions without shame or defensiveness. For example, if a friend assumes you can pay for their concert ticket because you have a stable job, you might say, I know it might seem like I'm in a good spot, but I'm actually saving for some big goals, so I need to stick to my budget. This gently clarifies your situation while reinforcing your boundary. It also opens the door for a deeper conversation about money, which can strengthen the relationship by fostering mutual understanding. Let's dive into the psychological concept of scripts, the ingrained patterns of behavior we fall into during financial interactions. For example, if you grew up in a household where saying no to family requests was taboo, you might have a script that says, I have to help, no matter what. Recognizing these scripts is the first step to rewriting them. Try identifying one or two situations where you feel trapped by your usual response. For instance, if you always say yes to splitting the bill evenly at restaurants, even when you ordered less, practice a new script. Hey, I only had the salad, so I'll cover my share, cool. Rehearsing these responses in low-pressure settings builds confidence for tougher conversations, like turning down a loan request. Technology continues to be a game changer in maintaining financial boundaries. Beyond apps like Venmo or Splitwise, consider using budgeting tools to reinforce your limits. For example, setting up a separate, fun account for social spending can help you stick to your boundaries without feeling deprived. If a friend invites you to an expensive event, you can check your fun account and say, I've got $50 set aside for outings this month, so I'll need to keep it low-key. This approach makes your boundaries feel less personal and more about your system, reducing the chance of hurt feelings. You can also use automation to prioritize your financial goals, say, by scheduling automatic transfers to savings or debt payments. This makes it easier to say no to requests because you can honestly say, my money's already tied up in my savings plan. One area that deserves more attention is the impact of financial boundaries on mental health. Constantly saying yes to financial requests or overspending to keep up can lead to stress, anxiety, and even burnout. On the other hand, clear boundaries create a sense of control and peace. To protect your mental health, practice self-care after tough money conversations. This could be as simple as taking a walk, journaling about the experience, or talking to a trusted friend who understands your goals. For example, after telling a family member you can't lend them money, you might feel guilty or anxious. Acknowledge those feelings, remind yourself why you set the boundary, and do something calming, like meditating or watching a favorite show. Over time, these small acts of self-care reinforce your confidence in your boundaries. Let's explore the concept of financial enmeshment, where your finances become overly entangled with someone else's. This often happens in close relationships, like with parents, siblings, or best friends, where there's an expectation of shared resources. Enmeshment can make it hard to say no because you feel like your financial decisions are tied to the other person's well-being. To disentangle, start by identifying where your finances overlap. Are you covering their phone bill? Co-signing a loan? Once you've pinpointed the enmeshment, take steps to separate your finances. For example, if you're paying for a family member's subscription service, you might say, I can cover this for one more month, but after that, you'll need to take it over. Gradually phasing out financial support gives them time to adjust while reinforcing your independence. Another practical tip is to create a boundary script for common scenarios. These are pre-prepared responses that you can lean on when you're caught off guard. For instance, if you're often asked for loans, you might use, "I'm really sorry you're in a tough spot, but I've made a rule not to lend money. Can I help you find some other resources?" If friends pressure you to join expensive outings, try, "That sounds amazing, but I'm sticking to my budget this month. Let's do something free, like a hike." Having these scripts ready reduces the pressure to think on your feet and helps you stay consistent. It's also worth addressing the role of gratitude in maintaining boundaries. When you say no to a financial request, it's easy to focus on the negative, guilt, awkwardness, or fear of conflict. But reframing the situation with gratitude can shift your perspective. Be grateful for the relationship, for your ability to make thoughtful choices, and for the opportunity to prioritize your goals. For example, after declining to fund a friend's project, you might think, "I'm grateful we're close enough to have this conversation, and I'm glad I'm sticking to my savings plan." This mindset helps you see boundaries as a positive choice, not a rejection of the other person. As you implement these strategies, you'll likely encounter pushback from some people in your life. Not everyone will immediately respect your boundaries, especially if they're used to you saying yes. This is where patience and persistence come in. If someone reacts negatively, say, by guilt-tripping you or getting upset, stay calm and restate your position. "I understand this is disappointing, but this is what I need to do for my financial health." Over time, most people will come to respect your consistency, and those who don't may reveal deeper issues in the relationship that need addressing. Finally, let's talk about the long-term benefits of setting financial boundaries. Beyond protecting your bank account, boundaries create a ripple effect of empowerment. You'll feel more confident in your financial decisions, less stressed about money, and more present in your relationships. You'll also model healthy behavior for others, showing that it's possible to be generous and supportive while prioritizing your own needs. This can inspire friends and family to set their own boundaries, creating a culture of mutual respect and understanding. As you move forward, remember that setting financial boundaries is a journey, not a destination. You'll make mistakes, face tough conversations, and learn as you go. But with each step, you're building a life where your finances and relationships work in harmony, allowing you to show up as your best self for the people you care about. By staying true to your values, communicating with empathy, and practicing consistency, you'll create boundaries that not only protect your financial future but also deepen the trust and connection in your relationships. Please subscribe to this channel and enable the notification bell so you'll be alerted whenever we upload a new one. Setting financial boundaries with friends and family is a dynamic and evolving process that requires not only practical strategies but also emotional intelligence, cultural awareness, and a deep commitment to your own well-being. As we continue to explore this topic, let's delve into additional layers of complexity, uncover more nuanced approaches, and address real-world scenarios that can make or break your ability to maintain healthy financial boundaries while nurturing meaningful relationships. By weaving together psychological insights, actionable tips, and relatable examples, we'll equip you with the tools to navigate these situations with confidence, grace, and authenticity. One of the most compelling aspects of financial boundaries is how they intersect with personal identity. Money isn't just currency, it's a reflection of your values, priorities, and life experiences. For some, saying no to a financial request feels like a rejection of their role as a provider, caregiver, or loyal friend. This is especially true if you've built an identity around being the reliable one in your family or social circle. To untangle this, start by redefining what it means to be supportive. Helping others doesn't always require money, it can mean offering time, advice, or emotional support. For example, if your cousin asks for help with a medical bill, you might say, "I can't cover the cost right now, but I'd love to help you research payment plans or local assistance programs." This reframes your role as supportive without compromising your financial stability, allowing you to stay true to your identity while setting clear limits. Another fascinating angle is the role of cultural narratives around money. In many cultures, financial interdependence is a cornerstone of family life. For instance, in some communities, it's expected that those who make it financially will support extended family members, from paying for school fees to covering living expenses. While this can foster a sense of unity, it can also create pressure to overextend yourself. If this resonates with you, the challenge is to honor your cultural values while carving out space for your own financial goals. One approach is to have an open family discussion about balancing collective support with individual responsibility. You might say, "I'm so grateful for our family's tradition of helping each other. To keep things sustainable, I can contribute $200 a month to the family fund, but I'll need to focus on my savings too." This shows respect for the cultural norm while setting a clear, manageable boundary. Let's also consider the impact of financial boundaries on long-term relationships, particularly with close friends. Friendships often thrive on shared experiences, but when those experiences come with a high price tag, they can strain your budget and your bond. For example, if your friend group loves dining at upscale restaurants or taking lavish group trips, you might feel caught between fitting in and staying financially responsible. One way to navigate this is to take the lead in suggesting budget-friendly alternatives that still prioritize connection. For instance, instead of agreeing to a $500 weekend getaway, propose a local day trip. "I'm trying to keep things affordable. How about we do a beach day or a picnic in the park?" By framing it as a fun, intentional choice, you shift the narrative from, "I can't afford it," to, "I'm choosing something different." This not only protects your finances but also encourages your friends to rethink their own spending habits. Another captivating point is the psychological phenomenon of anticipatory guilt. This is the anxiety you feel when you anticipate saying no to a financial request, even before it's been made. For example, you might dread a family reunion because you know someone will ask for a loan, and you're already bracing for the guilt of declining. To manage this, practice proactive boundary setting by addressing potential requests before they arise. If you suspect your sibling might ask for money at the next family gathering, you could casually mention in advance, "I've been tightening my budget to save for a big goal, so I'm keeping my spending super focused right now." This plants the seed that financial help isn't an option, reducing the likelihood of an awkward request later. It also helps you feel more in control, easing that anticipatory guilt. The role of transparency in financial boundaries is another critical point. While you don't need to share every detail of your finances, a certain level of openness can prevent misunderstandings. For example, if your parents assume you're doing fine because you have a steady job, they might not realize how tight your budget actually is. Sharing just enough context can clarify your position without oversharing. You might say, "I know it looks like I'm in a good spot, but most of my income goes to bills and savings, so I need to be careful with extra expenses." This kind of transparency fosters empathy and helps others understand your boundaries without feeling judged or dismissed. It also invites them to share their own financial realities, creating a more open dialogue. Let's explore the concept of financial enabling, which can sneak into relationships under the guise of kindness. Enabling happens when you repeatedly bail someone out of financial trouble, inadvertently preventing them from learning to manage their own money. For example, if you're constantly covering your friend's rent because they overspend, you might be enabling a cycle of dependency. Breaking this pattern requires a shift from rescuing to empowering. Instead of giving money, offer to help them create a budget, connect them with a financial counselor, or share resources like free online courses on personal finance. You could say, "I want to help you get on solid ground. Let's sit down and look at some ways to manage your expenses." This approach shows care while encouraging independence, preserving both your finances and the relationship. Another intriguing aspect is how financial boundaries intersect with life transitions. Major milestones, like getting married, having kids, or starting a business, can shift your financial priorities and strain relationships if expectations aren't realigned. For instance, if you've always been the one to fund family vacations but now have a newborn, your ability to contribute might change. Communicate these shifts early to avoid resentment. You might say to your siblings, "With the baby, our budget's really focused on childcare right now, so I won't be able to chip in for the trip this year. Let's plan something low cost instead." By tying your boundary to a specific life change, you make it clear that your decision is about your circumstances, not a lack of care. The influence of gender dynamics on financial boundaries is another point worth exploring. In some relationships, societal expectations around gender can shape how money is handled. For example, women may face pressure to be nurturing and accommodating, making it harder to say no to financial requests. Men, on the other hand, might feel obligated to play the role of provider, even when it's not financially feasible. Recognizing these pressures can help you push back against them. If you're a woman who feels guilty saying no to a family member, remind yourself that prioritizing your financial health is a form of strength, not selfishness. If you're a man feeling pressured to cover expenses, practice asserting your limits. "I want to be there for you, but I can't take on extra costs right now." Breaking free from gendered expectations empowers you to set boundaries that align with your reality, not societal norms. Let's also address the role of humor in diffusing tension around financial boundaries. Money conversations can feel heavy, but a light touch can make them less awkward. For example, if a friend keeps pushing you to join an expensive outing, you might say with a smile, "My wallet's on a strict diet right now, can we do something free and fun instead?" Humor softens the delivery while still conveying your boundary, making it easier for others to accept without feeling rejected. Just be careful not to use humor to avoid tough conversations altogether. Clarity is still key. Another practical strategy is to create a financial boundary toolkit. This is a mental or written set of resources you can draw on when faced with tricky situations. Your toolkit might include phrases like, "I need to check my budget before I commit," or, "Let's find a way to make this work within my limits." It could also include a list of non-financial ways to support others, like offering to babysit, cook a meal, or help with a resume. Having this toolkit ready gives you confidence and flexibility, so you're not scrambling to respond in the moment. For example, if a family member asks for a loan, you can pull from your toolkit, "I can't lend money right now, but I'd be happy to help you look for side gigs to cover the gap." The concept of boundary creep is another fascinating point. This happens when you start to relax your boundaries over time, often because you feel guilty or want to avoid conflict. For instance, you might agree to cover a small expense for a friend, only to find yourself covering larger ones as they keep asking. To prevent boundary creep, regularly check in with yourself about your financial decisions. Are you saying yes out of habit or obligation? Are your boundaries still aligned with your goals? If you notice creep happening, reset the boundary with a clear conversation. "I've been helping out with expenses, but I need to get back to my original plan of only contributing what I budgeted." This reinforces your limits without undoing the progress you've made. Let's also consider the role of gratitude in relationships with financial boundaries. When you set a boundary, it's easy to focus on the potential for conflict or disappointment. But expressing gratitude can shift the dynamic. For example, after declining a financial request, you might say, "I'm so grateful we can talk openly about this, it means a lot to me that we're close." This reinforces the value of the relationship, making it clear that your boundary is about your needs, not a rejection of them. Gratitude can also help you stay grounded in your own choices, reminding you to appreciate your ability to prioritize your financial health. As we wrap up this exploration, let's reflect on the empowerment that comes with financial boundaries. Every time you say no to a request that doesn't align with your goals, you're saying yes to your own future. Whether it's saving for a dream trip, paying off debt, or building an emergency fund, your boundaries are a tool for creating the life you want. They also set a powerful example for others, showing that it's possible to be generous, supportive, and financially responsible all at once. Over time, the people who matter most will respect your boundaries, and those who don't may not belong in your inner circle. In the end, setting financial boundaries with friends and family is about more than money. It's about creating relationships that are built on mutual respect, honesty, and trust. By approaching these conversations with empathy, clarity, and consistency, you can protect your financial well-being while deepening your connections. It's a journey of learning, adapting, and growing, but with each step, you're building a life where your finances and relationships work in harmony, allowing you to thrive in both. The art of setting financial boundaries with friends and family is a continuous journey that demands not only practical strategies but also emotional resilience, cultural sensitivity, and a deep understanding of human relationships. As we dive deeper into this exploration, we'll uncover additional layers of insight, introduce fresh perspectives, and provide actionable tools to navigate the complexities of financial interactions with those closest to you. By blending psychological nuances, real-life scenarios, and creative approaches, this continuation will empower you to establish boundaries that protect your financial well-being while fostering stronger, more authentic connections. One of the most intriguing aspects of financial boundaries is how they reveal the unspoken expectations embedded in relationships. Every friendship and family dynamic carries a set of assumptions about money, whether it's who pays for what, how resources are shared, or what constitutes fairness. These assumptions often go unaddressed until they create tension. For example, you might have a friend who assumes that because you've covered a few dinners in the past, you'll always pick up the tab. Uncovering these expectations requires curiosity and courage. One way to approach this is by initiating a casual conversation about money before a conflict arises. You could say, "I've been thinking about how we handle group expenses, maybe we could set some ground rules to keep things simple." This opens the door to clarifying expectations without pointing fingers, creating a shared understanding that benefits everyone. Another compelling angle is the concept of financial mirroring. This is when the people around you reflect your own financial habits, both the good and the bad. For instance, if you're prone to overspending to impress others, you might attract friends who expect lavish gestures, perpetuating a cycle of financial strain. Recognizing this pattern can be a wake-up call to reassess your own behavior. Ask yourself, are my financial choices driven by my values, or am I trying to meet others' expectations? To break the cycle, start modeling the behavior you want to see. If you want your friends to respect your budget, show them what that looks like by suggesting affordable activities or being upfront about your limits. For example, "I'm sticking to a $20 budget for this outing, let's find a great spot that fits." This not only sets a boundary but also encourages others to adopt similar habits, creating a ripple effect of financial mindfulness. Let's explore the role of time in financial boundaries. Money decisions often feel urgent. Someone needs a loan, right now, or a group trip needs to be booked, today. This urgency can pressure you into saying yes before you've had a chance to think. To counteract this, build a habit of delaying your response to financial requests. A simple phrase like, "Let me check my budget and get back to you tomorrow," gives you space to evaluate the request, without being swayed by emotion or pressure. This pause also signals to others that you take your finances seriously, which can deter impulsive asks in the future. For example, if your sibling asks for help with a bill, you might say, "I need to look at my numbers first, I'll let you know by tonight." This not only protects your financial health but also models thoughtful decision-making. Another fascinating point is the intersection of financial boundaries and personal growth. Setting limits with friends and family isn't just about money, it's about asserting your autonomy and learning to prioritize yourself. This can be especially challenging if you've spent years putting others' needs first. Each time you uphold a boundary, you're practicing self-advocacy, which strengthens your confidence in other areas of life. For instance, saying no to a friend's request to borrow money might feel uncomfortable at first, but it reinforces your ability to stand up for your needs. Over time, this builds a sense of empowerment that spills over into your career, relationships, and personal goals. To support this growth, celebrate small wins. After a tough conversation, reflect on what went well. I stayed calm and explained my position clearly, that felt good. These moments of self-acknowledgement reinforce your progress and make future boundary setting easier. The influence of social comparison is another critical factor. In an age of social media, it's easy to feel like you're falling behind when you see friends or family posting about luxurious vacations, designer purchases, or extravagant gifts. This can make it harder to stick to your financial boundaries, especially if you worry about being perceived as cheap or less successful. To combat this, focus on your own definition of success. What are you working toward? Maybe it's a debt-free life, a down payment on a home, or the freedom to travel on your terms. When you're clear on your goals, external comparisons lose their power. For example, if your cousin brags about their expensive holiday plans and pressures you to join, you could say, "That sounds amazing, but I'm saving for something big right now, maybe we can do a local adventure instead." This keeps you grounded in your priorities while maintaining the connection. Let's also consider the role of negotiation in financial boundaries. Not every situation requires a hard yes or no. Sometimes, there's room to find a middle ground. For example, if your parents ask you to contribute to a family expense that's beyond your budget, you might negotiate a smaller contribution or a different form of help. You could say, "I can't cover the full amount, but I can chip in $50 and help with some of the planning." This shows you're willing to collaborate while staying within your limits. Negotiation works best when both parties feel heard, so listen to their needs before proposing a solution. For instance, if a friend wants to split a costly gift for a mutual acquaintance, ask, "What's most important to you about this gift?" Their answer might reveal a way to meet the goal, like choosing a thoughtful but affordable option, without breaking your budget. Another captivating point is the concept of financial legacy. The way you handle money with friends and family doesn't just affect you, it shapes the expectations and habits of those around you, including future generations. If you're a parent, for example, setting clear financial boundaries teaches your children the value of financial responsibility. If you always say yes to their requests for money or expensive items, they might grow up expecting the same from others. Instead, involve them in age-appropriate money conversations. For instance, if your teen wants a new phone, you could say, "I can cover half, but you'll need to save up the rest, let's make a plan." This not only sets a boundary but also passes down a legacy of financial independence and problem solving. The role of empathy in boundary setting is another rich area to explore. When someone asks for financial help, they're often in a vulnerable place, whether it's due to a job loss, medical emergency, or poor planning. Approaching these conversations with empathy can make your boundaries feel less like rejection and more like a thoughtful response. For example, if your friend asks for a loan to cover rent, you might say, "I can see how stressful this is for you, and I really want to help. I can't lend money right now, but I can help you look for other solutions." This acknowledges their struggle while holding your boundary, creating a moment of connection rather than conflict. Empathy also helps you stay calm when someone reacts poorly to your boundary, as you can recognize their response is coming from their own stress or disappointment, not a personal attack. Let's also address the challenge of financial ghosting, where someone avoids money conversations altogether to dodge setting boundaries. This might look like ignoring a friend's Venmo request or dodging a family member's calls because you know they'll ask for money. While ghosting might feel easier in the moment, it can erode trust and create bigger problems down the line. Instead, practice addressing the issue head-on, even if it's uncomfortable. For example, if you owe a friend for a shared expense but can't pay right away, say, "I'm a bit tight this month, but I'll settle up by next week," does that work? This keeps the lines of communication open and shows respect for the relationship. If you're on the receiving end of ghosting, gently bring it up. I noticed you haven't responded about the group dinner bill, can we sort it out? This encourages accountability without escalating into conflict. Another practical tool is the boundary audit. Periodically review your financial interactions with friends and family to see where your boundaries are holding strong and where they might need reinforcement. For example, ask yourself, are there people I'm consistently overextending for? Are there situations where I feel resentful or taken advantage of? If you notice a pattern, like always covering your siblings' share of family expenses, plan a conversation to reset expectations. You might say, I've been covering a lot of our family costs, but I need to scale back to focus on my goals. Can we split things more evenly moving forward? This audit keeps your boundaries aligned with your evolving financial reality and prevents small compromises from turning into major issues. The role of humor deserves another mention, as it can be a powerful tool for navigating tricky financial moments. When used thoughtfully, humor can lighten the mood and make boundaries feel less confrontational. For instance, if a friend keeps suggesting expensive outings, you could joke, my bank account's sending me SOS signals, can we do something free this time? This keeps the conversation friendly while clearly stating your limit. Just be mindful that humor doesn't undermine your message, pair it with a clear boundary to avoid confusion. For example, follow up with, seriously, I'm sticking to a budget, so let's plan something affordable. As we near the conclusion, let's reflect on the long-term impact of financial boundaries on your mental and emotional health. Constantly navigating money requests or overspending to keep up can lead to chronic stress, which takes a toll on your well-being. Clear boundaries, on the other hand, create a sense of freedom and control. They allow you to engage with friends and family from a place of confidence, knowing you're making choices that align with your values. To support this, build a habit of checking in with yourself after financial interactions. How did the conversation feel? Did you uphold your boundary? If not, what can you do differently next time? This reflection strengthens your ability to stay consistent and reduces the emotional weight of money decisions. Setting financial boundaries with friends and family is a profound act of self-care and relationship building. It's about more than protecting your bank account, it's about creating space for authentic connections rooted in mutual respect and understanding. By grounding yourself in your financial reality, communicating with empathy and clarity, and staying consistent in your limits, you can navigate the complexities of money and relationships with confidence. These boundaries empower you to prioritize your goals, whether it's paying off debt, saving for the future, or simply living within your means, while still showing up as a supportive friend or family member. The journey isn't always easy. You'll face pushback, guilt, and moments of doubt. But with each conversation, you're building a stronger sense of self and fostering relationships that thrive on honesty rather than obligation. Over time, the people who matter most will respect your boundaries, and those who don't may reveal where your energy is better spent. By embracing tools like proactive communication, negotiation, empathy, and even humor, you can create a life where your finances and relationships work in harmony. Ultimately, financial boundaries are a gift, to yourself, to your loved ones, and to the future you're building together. Did you like this audio? Please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated whenever we post a new one. See you in the next one.